Welcome to the House of Hypertrophy. What if we convinced someone their training program was perfectly optimized for them, but didn't reveal that it was a lie? Could their belief alone lead to better results? What if we gave someone a placebo pill, telling them it was an anabolic steroid or caffeine? Would they feel more energetic, lift heavier, and see better gains? And what about other underappreciated questions relating to the power of the mind? Could positive self-talk or even just imagining your training lead to more progress? In this video, we'll explore the fascinating research behind these questions. Some of the findings might surprise you. Let's dive in. This study had 40 athletes train for 10 weeks. One group was told their training program was individualized for them based on their force velocity profile. Don't worry about what this means, it's not essential, but you can check out the pinned comment if you're curious. The other group was told they were doing a generic non-optimal training program. In reality, both groups followed the same training program. The results showed that the group who believed their training was individualized experienced greater gains in back squat strength and muscle thickness of the rectus femoris. So, even though the training was identical, the belief that it was personalized led to better results. Summoning the spirit of scientific accuracy, this study is not flawless and is considered just a pilot study. The training focused on strength and power, and sprint and jump performance did not differ between the two groups. Also, the muscle thickness increases were fairly small, with measurement error and other potential confounders possibly in play. Regardless, this study relates to the placebo effect, which is a beneficial outcome that happens because you believe you were given a beneficial treatment. The mechanisms behind the placebo effect are unclear. Perhaps being told your training is individualized makes you put more effort and intensity into your training and recovery. Other currently unknown factors could contribute too. This isn't the only study on the power of the placebo effect with lifting weights. There are even more surprising studies. If you followed the House of Hypertrophy for a while, you might remember these two studies, but let me briefly revisit them as they still blow my mind. The first paper was published back in 1973. 15 trained varsity athletes trained normally for 7 weeks. Then for the next 4 weeks, 6 of them were chosen and given a daily 10mg pill of Dianabol, an anabolic steroid. Unknown to them, it was just a placebo. After the initial 7 weeks without the pill, these were the average strength gains they saw on 4 exercises. After the 4 weeks where they took the pill, these were the strength gains they saw. The subjects experienced 2 to 10 times more strength gains in just over half the time, simply by being tricked into thinking they were taking anabolic steroids. The second paper was published in 2000, and the author was actually a powerlifting coach who noted that some of his athletes, who were 11 nationally ranked powerlifters, asked about the effectiveness of steroids, which inspired the author to run this study. Here were the subjects' baseline 1 rep max strength on the bench press, back squat, and deadlift. They were pretty damn strong. In the first test, before testing strength on these 3 exercises again, the subjects were given 2 tablets and told they were immediate-acting anabolic steroids, but they were just placebo pills. This resulted in all the subjects hitting personal bests, lifting an average 9.5 kilograms more on the bench press, 12.2 kilograms on the squat, and 10.9 kilograms on the deadlift. The authors noted that these gains were significant enough to elevate the athletes from national to international rankings. Subjects were given 2 more tablets to take for the upcoming week of training, and all reported increased vigor, lifting heavier or performing more reps than ever before. In the next testing session, some of the subjects were told the pills were just placebos. These subjects' strength dropped down to their baseline levels, while those who weren't told this roughly maintained their impressive gains. Tricking people into thinking they've consumed caffeine or even an amino acid supplement has also been shown to improve training performance. The effects aren't as large as being deceived into thinking you've taken anabolic steroids, but the effects tend to result in squeezing out a couple more reps. There's actually a pretty respectable effect from preconditioning, which makes sense once you understand it. Imagine someone does as many reps as they can with 100 kilograms on the bench press. After a few days of rest, we give them a pill telling them it's a special caffeine supplement, and then test their max reps again. This time, without them knowing, we reduce the weight down to 90 kilograms while making it look like 100 kilograms. Perhaps we use fake weights. Because the weight is lighter, they'll do more reps than expected, thereby preconditioning and convincing them that the supplement is highly effective. A few days later, we give them the same pill and test their max reps with a real 100 kilograms. Their performance will typically be much better than it would have been without the preconditioning. For a detailed description of a preconditioning study and how it controls for confounders, check out the pinned comment. Summoning the spirit of scientific accuracy once again, not every study has found the placebo effect in the weightlifting world, but most have. And again, the effects appear to be larger when people believe they're taking something with a bigger impact. The opposite of the placebo effect also exists, the nocebo effect, where a negative outcome happens because you believe you received a negative treatment. For example, this paper found that electrical stimulation of the quads, which the subjects were told would increase their fatigue but was just a sham, led to reduced performance on the leg extension. So what could we do with this placebo and nocebo literature? While it's tough to trick yourself into believing you're taking the ultimate muscle building pill, this highlights the potential benefits of being optimistic and confident, as well as the potential dangers of negative thinking. If you constantly tell yourself you have terrible genetics or you can't surpass a certain limit, these thoughts might be holding you back more than you realize. While making this video, I was reminded of a section in Arnold's book titled "The Mind, the Most Powerful Tool." He shares a pretty cool story involving Franco Columbu that I thought I'd share here. Franco and I were squatting in the old Gold's gym. Franco got under 500 pounds, squatted down, and couldn't get back up. 500 pounds for even one rep was apparently just too heavy for him that day. Just then, 4 or 5 Italian-American kids from New York came in. "There's Franco. Hey Franco." They were great fans and were looking forward to watching him work out. I took Franco aside and told him, "Franco, these guys think you're the king. You can't get under 500 pounds again and fail." All of a sudden his face changed. He went out onto the street and spent a while psyching himself up. He stalked back into the gym, grabbed the bar, and instead of the 6 reps he was supposed to do with 500 pounds, he did 8. Obviously, Franco's muscles didn't get any stronger in that few minutes between sets. What did change was his mind, his drive and motivation, his desire for the goal. This is a perfect segue into our next topic. Franco went out to the street to psych himself up. There are different ways you could psych yourself up, such as talking to yourself with motivating words and even imagining yourself lifting. What does the scientific literature say about the effectiveness of psyching up? Before moving on to this, I actually have a potential way to create the placebo effect for yourself. It's through our exceptionally high quality partner, the Alpha Progression app. The app can generate an evidence-based training program 100% custom to your needs. Based on what we've seen, it may not be a bad idea to expect the best gains of your life with the program. This isn't necessarily deceiving, as I genuinely believe the app does a phenomenal job with the training variables aligned with the current scientific literature. You can analyze your progress with clean graphs. There's a huge exercise database with video and instructions. And the app also has built-in progressive overload recommendations to help you keep making gains. Try out all these premium features free for 2 weeks with the link in the description and pinned comment. If you choose to continue, the link gives you 20% off a subscription. Again, I truly believe the app is awesome, with the thousands of reviews echoing this. A recent review paper examined the effects of psyching up on maximal muscle force production. There are 3 main types of psyching up I'll mention here. Preparatory arousal is something you do to pump yourself up. It could be screaming or pacing back and forth quickly. Motivational self-talk is talking to yourself with motivating words, such as "I can lift this weight." And you may consider what Ronnie used to do as motivational self-talk. Imagery involves you imagining yourself performing an exercise with as much detail as you can muster up. Visualizing yourself performing an exercise from your own eyes in first person is likely more effective than a third person vision. The review found that most studies on these techniques found they successfully increased maximal force production. There currently isn't enough evidence to say if one is better than another, and it could vary based on people's preference. Anyhow, let me briefly overview 2 studies from the review so you have a better idea of all this. This 1993 paper had trained varsity football players use preparatory arousal through watching aggressive football videos before bench pressing. This resulted in greater bench press 1 rep max strength. So watching motivational videos before lifting could be beneficial. Now, this study examined the instant effect. They psych up and then we test their strength. Nearly all of the studies in the review just explored the instant effect. But how are gains impacted by using psyching up techniques week after week? That is, in the long term. Fortunately, we have the second study that recruited 44 trained combat practitioners. They trained physically 3 times per week with these exercises and variables. The imagery group, after the session, spent around 30 minutes imagining themselves performing the same exercises and variables from a first-person view. These were the instructions given. A combined imagery and self-talk group also spent 30 minutes imagining the exercises, but added positive and motivational self-talk during both physical and imagery sessions. The researchers recommended identifying and rewriting negative self-talk into positive statements. For example, changing "I can't lift this" to "I can lift this." A control group just performed the physical training sessions with no imagery or self-talk, but they did a 30-minute neutral cognitive task after, so time was equated between all groups. It was found that bench press and half squat strength tended to be best for the combined imagery and self-talk group, followed by the imagery group and then the control group. Self-efficacy and motivation scores followed the same pattern. This is just one study, so it's certainly not definitive proof psyching up enhances long-term gains yet, and there's no research yet on its effects on muscle hypertrophy. 30 minutes of mental imagery is also a big time investment, but positive self-talk is something more practical. However, shorter mental imagery sessions could still provide some benefits. There's a lot of research on mental imagery, and this is a whole other video itself. Let me know if you'd like to see that. For now at least, we have solid evidence these psyching up strategies can instantly benefit your strength, so feel free to try any of them individually or in combination. Even if it's just a placebo effect, well, we know that's not a bad thing. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Here's the key summary points. Feel free to check out the Alpha Progression app or another one of the videos at the House of Hypertrophy.